In today's clip, I'm going to quickly dispose of a common myth amongst the nation's youth that Social Security will be long gone by the time they get to be old people and take money out. Ew, Zempak here. Another day mostly spent thinking about that money cushion that's been built up, okay? I hope you too have a good cushion built up because, while money isn't everything, sure helps most people sleep at night, alright? So if you got here through a nook and crook, do comment, like, and subscribe, because I simply had to get that bit out of the way. Yeah. Okay, I know I've been personally responsible for saying the statement that I'm about to dispel. See if this sounds familiar to you, okay? Who cares about Social Security? It'll all be gone by the time I'm old anyway. Yep, I admit it. I've said it. Mostly because all we hear about in the news is how terrible the state of Social Security is, right? So no surprise that most of us are very pessimistic about it. So let's get into the weeds a bit and see why that's actually not entirely true. Even though for most people under the age of 40, you probably shouldn't depend on it either. So point number one, the constant items in the news about how Social Security is running out of money, that's true, at least that's what it sounds like. The Social Security trust funds that's been built up due to previous years' surplus is getting depleted, right? That is a concern. But here's the main crux of it, right? Social Security pays for current old people. So right now, what it pays out to the senior citizens right now is primarily via the tax that they get from the current workers, i.e. the current young people, right? So unless you expect the entire working population of the United States to move elsewhere, or maybe via zombie apocalypse simply disappear, then Social Security will never actually be gone, right? Never gone, so long as there's working age people around paying into it. Now, the Social Security trust funds that's depleting, on the other hand, what effects does that have? It actually means that the Social Security benefits right now may need to be cut, right? Because the number of workers right now can't keep up with the number of retirees that are still living, right? That's assuming, like, it might have to be cut to 75% of its current levels if no government policies are made to counter this trend, right? This is primarily because, in the next 20 years or so, the number of retired and yet living people, read boomers, will stress the system of Social Security like no generation prior due to its relative large number, right? And to be honest, I'll address this a little later, due to the fact that Social Security wasn't designed this way. Okay. Now, point number two. I'm having to go from better news to crappier news, unfortunately. Keep in mind the current level of Social Security is only $1,500 a month on average. Okay, this amount will be adjusted for inflation in the future, so you don't have to worry about that part. But even at today's value, $1,500 a month for most people is barely above poverty level, right? For older people, let's assume that they're more likely to have a paid house, though that's not guaranteed, obviously, depending on your, station in life. But because housing is most people's number one expense, if you remove that, that's how a significant amount of seniors can survive just on their Social Security benefits alone. I think the figure is something like 40%, right? My point is, it's never meant to be the sole method of living in retirement, right? Consider how the benefits may yet to be cut, right? If we're only paying through the current number of workers' taxes, as I mentioned in point one, right? 75% of $1,500 a month would come out to be like something like $1,100, $1,200 a month. We're getting to a point where even if you have a paid-for house, this is barely a livable amount, right? So keep in mind, it was never ever supposed to be the only way for a senior to live. The fact that there are something like 40% of people who live on just Social Security, I'm gonna have to point to personal responsibility here, okay? Now, and point number three, the reality is that, it's not that bad. The government has a lot of options at their disposal. Hopefully, before the Social Security trust funds that actually depletes to nothing, right? I can give two real easy examples. One is, just raise the retirement age, right? So you can pay less people over a shorter amount of time. Recall when this program actually first started, it was meant to last you, to be honest, like maybe a year, maybe 5. The key example to remember is the first recipient of Social Security took her first payment in 1940 at the age of 66, when the average life expectancy of Americans was only 63, okay? So it's smaller than the age, the Social Security age where you could take a regular payment. So technically, Social Security was really meant to only pay for the minority of people who happens to have lived past their life expectancy age of 63. Right? Compared to now, okay, the average age of expectancy is 79. So, great. Could the government simply raise the retirement age to mirror the original intention of the program? Because that would put the new retirement age to be around in the early 80s. Okay. Obviously, this is unlikely, a bit of an extreme version. If they're going to raise the retirement age, they will raise it slowly and steadily rather than go from whatever it is right now, which I think is like 66. Go from 66 to 80. Okay. Yes, it's unlikely, right? But it should be done simply because honestly, people are living way longer, right? Because this is the average life expectancy. That means there are 50% of the people that are living well past the age of 80, right? So another decade or two. That's why Social Security is depleting its surplus funds, okay? Now, the other real easy call is simply, not cap the Social Security contribution on, regular income earners, right? Usually it's the high wage earners. Right now, it is actually capped at, I think, $143,000 per year on just earned wage, right? But presumably, if they increase, just simply remove the cap, increase the cap or remove the cap entirely, then higher earners will be hit. They will have to pay more taxes. But presumably, higher earners have an easier time dealing with retirement of their own accord, right? So, the government could lift the cap, and all of a sudden the Social Security program would get a lot more money flowing in, right? Obviously, nobody likes to pay taxes, but the reality is that the affected people would only be relatively high earners, right? People who make more than $143,000 in wages and salaries every year. And by definition, that means that there are less of them and therefore can be more easily ignored. I'm sorry to say it like that, but that's the reality of it, okay? Now, remember, these are high wage earners and not entrepreneurs either. So they're not the real rich people, they're just the upper middle class. They are literally the people already most squeezed by current United States fiscal policy, okay? Yeah, I mean, I used to be part of the group, so I guess I can say that. And in terms of number of people, they're not enough of them. So it's easier and most politically expedient to ignore that group, right? At the end of the day, Social Security is not ever simply going to be gone, just because at its core it pays out what it's getting in every year, right? At the same time. The amount may fluctuate, yes, but it won't be gone. But hey, I'm a cynic, and I really like efficiency, right? So while I don't think most people should need much to live, I mean, wouldn't you rather have a cushion, though, to not feel like you're right at the edge of poverty? So if that's the case, then just think about Social Security as icing on the cake, right? Rather than the cake itself, right? While it will certainly be around in one form or another, okay, for anybody alive right now, or anybody who's capable of watching this video anyway, let's not forget that we can do a better job managing our own money than the government can, okay? So don't forget that it'll be around, but don't depend on it either, right? Now, if you get to financial independence earlier than the average bear, you'd never have to rely on such an archaic system designed simply to keep people from being destitute, okay? In the end, I know we can do better. Cheers. Oh, check out some other clips down the corners.